Before Putress became one of the Scourge at the beginning of the Third War, he loved nothing more than experimentation, discovery, and creation. Though that was all he truly knew. His life before Undeath was almost entirely forgotten. After some time, though, he regained his free will alongside the Forsaken. Knowing he needed to speak with the Dark Lady herself, he tracked down Sylvanas, though the Dreadlord Varimathras refused to grant him an audience. But Putress was not one to be deterred. He followed Sylvanas into the throne room of Lordran itself and confronted her directly. The boldness alone impressed Sylvanas enough to hear what he had to say. Putress explained that he barely remembered his life before Undeath and felt no attachment to the man he once was. Unlike many of the Forsaken, he embraced Undeath completely, seeing it not as a curse but as a gift, a boon. He believed the same plague that had created the Forsaken could be controlled and weaponized for their benefit. Impressed by his conviction, Sylvanas established the Royal Apothecary Society, with Putress as its Grand Apothecary. But there were conditions to this arrangement. The perfected plague had to be capable of killing the Scourge, not just the living. And if the opportunity ever presented itself, Arthas was to die by it. This work was not something many would accept, and so it was carried out in secret. Even Sylvanas understood how horrifying these acts would appear to others. But Putress cared little for morality or public opinion. He pushed the experiments further, eventually requesting living Forsaken test subjects, along with living human subjects if they could be acquired. Sylvanas agreed, though only the Forsaken who were criminals were to be used. Over time, the work consumed him completely. The pursuit of a perfected plague became his obsession, and no matter the cost, he intended to see it through. During the Second Scourge invasion, when floating necropolises appeared across Azeroth spawning the undead, Putress was deeply invested in researching both the plague and the Scourge themselves. Rather than working from the Undercity though, he operated out of an apothecary camp within Shatroth City. There, he experimented directly on infected Scourge remains, studying the plague in hopes of understanding it completely. Eventually, when he believed he had made progress, he sent Horde adventurers back to their capital cities, carrying severed Scourge heads that contained both the plague and an anti-plague compound he had developed. The cure was only partially successful, but the results were promising enough that Putress believed with enough time he could either cure the plague of undeath or at least counter it more effectively. Even so, his research ultimately played an important role in helping stop the zombie outbreak. With this success, Putress gained greater value and recognition within the Horde. So when Thrall gathered the Horde leadership to discuss the growing Scourge threat, Putress was present among them. During the meeting, Sylvanas personally offered both Putress and his expertise to aid the Horde campaign against the Lich King. What had once been secretive Forsaken research was now becoming one of the Horde's greatest weapons against Arthas. Throughout his work on the Plague, Putress kept Sylvanas updated on its progress, and she continually reminded him that if an opportunity ever arose to use it against the Lich King, he was to do so without hesitation. Ever since the Northrend campaign began, both Alliance and Horde had launched massive assaults across the frozen continent. Through these campaigns, they managed to secure footholds in both Howling Fjord and the Borean Tundra. Though they were still far from ending the threat of the Lich King and the Scourge, every battle won and every stretch of land reclaimed brought them one step closer to their goal. Over time, both factions pushed deeper into Northrend, slowly advancing toward Icecrown, where they'd hoped they could finally strike at the monster responsible for this endless war. The primary entrance into Icecrown and the heartland of the Scourge itself was believed to be Angrathar the Wrathgate, but both factions understood they could not face this threat alone. For the moment, a temporary truce had been formed as Alliance and Horde forces gathered near the Wrathgate in preparation for the assault. This would mark the first true attempt to directly breach the Lich King's domain, and while both armies prepared as best they could, everyone understood this would be their hardest battle yet. Before the assault began, each faction established a nearby stronghold. The Alliance constructed Fourdragon Hold under the command of High Lord Bolvar Fourdragon, while the Horde established Korkron Vanguard led by Dranosh Sourfang. However, before launching the attack, it was critical to ensure reinforcements from Azul Narub and Naxxramas could not reach the Wrathgate. Thankfully, both threats were contained, and at last, the armies of the Horde and Alliance prepared to launch the assault that could decide the fate of the war itself. The Alliance made the first move and struck against the Lich King's forces. The battle was fierce as they fought to break through the Scourge army blocking their path. Bolvar led the assault, fighting alongside his soldiers as the clash of steel echoed across the battlefield. Limbs were severed, soldiers cried out in desperation, and all around him his troops fought relentlessly, driven by the hope of ending this colossal threat once and for all. For a time, it seemed as though the battle might actually be turning in their favor. From the massive gate emerged Frost Vrykul alongside fresh Scourge reinforcements. Bolvar met the new threat head-on, blocking the swing of a massive axe before striking back with his sword in an attempt to cut the Vrykul down. The creature dodged and attacked again, forcing Bolvar to deflect the blow as the Scourge pressed harder against the Alliance lines. Slowly, his forces began to be overwhelmed, and the fear struck him that they might fall here before the gates of Icecrown. But the Horde would not stand idly by while the greatest battle of the war unfolded before them. Mounted atop their wolves, they charged into battle, crying out, "For the Horde!" With Dranosh Sourfang leading the assault, the Horde crashed into the Scourge lines, ready to tear their enemies apart. Fighting side by side, the Horde and Alliance managed to stabilize the battlefield and push the undead back from the gate. For a brief moment, victory felt possible. The armies regrouped before the Wrathgate itself, and Bolvar called out to Arthas directly, challenging the Lich King to come forth and answer for his crimes. Bolvar got his wish. The massive gates slowly opened once again, and the Lich King himself emerged to face them. In that instant, the tone of the battle shifted completely. With barely a gesture, Arthas raised more undead from the battlefield itself, restoring his ranks in moments. He mocked the gathered armies openly, condemning them as nothing more than future soldiers for the Scourge. Enraged, Dranosh charged directly at the Lich King, hoping to finally bring him down. But to Arthas, he was little more than a fly. Dranosh swung his axe, but Frostmourne shattered the weapon instantly before Arthas struck him down, claiming his soul for the cursed blade's growing collection. Bolvar prepared to charge next, but before he could, a voice suddenly echoed from the cliffs overlooking the battlefield. Grand Apothecary Putress. He denounced the Alliance, the Horde, and the Scourge alike, declaring that all of them would suffer the vengeance of the Forsaken. At his command, catapults positioned high above the battlefield unleashed canisters filled with the new plague. The barrel shattered upon impact, releasing thick clouds of green death across the battlefield below. Panic erupted instantly. Soldiers from both factions attempted to flee as the plague spread throughout the battlefield. Many died almost immediately, while others collapsed screaming in agony as the plague consumed them. Bolvar found himself trapped in the middle of the spreading clouds, watching helplessly as the plague drew closer and closer until it finally filled his lungs. He collapsed to the ground beside countless fallen soldiers as he slowly died among them. Even the Lich King himself was affected. Arthas realized too late that the plague posed a genuine threat even to him. Barely escaping destruction, he retreated back through the Wrathgate and into Icecrown. The battle was lost. Both armies suffered devastating casualties, and both their leaders had fallen. Bolvar remained upon the battlefield, only moments away from death itself, when red dragons descended from Wyrmrest's temple to cleanse the area. Their flames burned across the battlefield, purging both the plague and the undead alike. But while the dragonfire saved Bolvar's life, it changed him permanently. Most believed he had perished that day until the Alliance and Horde later entered Icecrown Citadel and discovered him still alive, chained behind the Lich King's throne. The battle was over, but both factions were left taking stock of the devastation and wondering what came next. Sometime after the fighting had ended, Alexstrasza and her consort Corialstraz arrived at the Wrathgate. The two dragons watched as survivors searched the battlefield for their comrades, hoping somehow they had survived, though most already knew the grim truth. This was no rescue mission, it was a recovery effort. The dragon spoke briefly with some of the survivors, hearing first-hand accounts of the horror that had unfolded before the Wrathgate. During the search, soldiers eventually recovered Bolvar Four-Dragon's shield, but his body was nowhere to be found. Many assumed the Scourge had dragged his remains away to either feast upon them or raise him into undeath later. But the dragons knew the truth. Speaking quietly in their own tongue, they warned one another. They must not discover the fate of the young paladin, not yet. Though Sylvanas had ordered Putress to use the plague if an opportunity to kill Arthas ever presented itself, Putress had ultimately betrayed her as well. Working alongside Varimathras, who still secretly served the Burning Legion, Putress had been promised greater power than Sylvanas could ever offer him. He willingly joined the coup against the Dark Lady in pursuit of his own ambition. But while Sylvanas desired Arthas' death more than anything else, this was never the outcome she wanted. Had Arthas truly died beneath the plague at the Wrathgate, she would have viewed the lives there lost as a necessary sacrifice. But nothing had gone according to plan. Instead of destroying the Lich King with perhaps the only weapon capable of harming him, Putress had slaughtered Horde and Alliance soldiers alike, warriors who had chosen, however briefly, to stand together against a common enemy. And rather than ending the war, the Wrathgate ignited an old hatred that had only barely begun to fade. When Varimathras moved against Sylvanas and seized control of the Undercity, he failed to kill her before she escaped Orgrimmar. There, she informed the Horde of the betrayal. In the aftermath, the Forsaken themselves became divided, with some remaining loyal to Sylvanas while others sided with Varimathras and Putress. When King Varian received Bolvar's shield from returning Alliance adventurers, grief and fury overtook him. To Varian, the Wrathgate was nothing less than a betrayal by the Horde. But more than that, Bolvar's apparent death struck him personally. Bolvar had not only been one of Varian's closest friends, who he counted as a brother, but had also helped raise Anduin during the years Varian was missing from Stormwind after his kidnapping and loss of memory. Varian needed answers. He sent Jaina to Orgrimmar to speak with Thrall and Sylvanas directly. Sylvanas claimed that Putress had acted on his own and promised the traitors would be dealt with. And Thrall insisted the Horde had no desire to go to war with the Alliance. Jaina then returned to Stormwind and relayed everything she had learned, but Varian was unconvinced. Sylvanas' explanation did not sit right with him, and with the Undercity no longer fully under Horde control, he saw an opportunity to reclaim the fallen kingdom of Lordaeron for the Alliance. The assault on the Undercity began soon after. The Horde struck first under the leadership of Thrall, Sylvanas, and Vol'jin, while the Alliance entered through the sewers, led by Varian, Jaina, Brol, and Valera. Both factions fought with brutal determination, each seeking vengeance for those lost at the Wrathgate. Through the assault, both Putress and Varimathras were ultimately defeated. Varimathras would be cast back into the Twisting Nether, only to later resurface in Antorus before finally meeting his end there. Putress' fate was simpler. After death, his soul was cast into the Shadowlands where, in time, it would be consumed by Death Knights for its essence, ensuring he would never again harm another living soul. But for Varian, the damage had already been done. As he pushed through the Undercity, he witnessed the horrors hidden beneath Lordaeron's ruins, mutilated human corpses used in foreign plague experiments. In that moment, his worst fears about the Forsaken were confirmed. Whatever fragile trust may have once existed between the Alliance and Horde collapsed entirely beneath the weight of the Wrathgate and the horrors uncovered beneath the city. Eventually, Varian confronted Thrall directly within the throne room of the Undercity, declaring openly that he could no longer trust the Horde and formally proclaiming war between the factions once more. Before the confrontation could erupt into another massacre within Lordaeron, Jaina intervened and stopped the conflict before blood once again flooded the halls of the Fallen Kingdom. And so, the event that was supposed to bring the factions together and mark the beginning of the end for the Lich King, instead destroyed what little trust and cooperation still remained between them. And just like the countless lives lost on the battlefield that fateful day beneath the plague, that fragile peace was lost as well. From now on, at the end of my videos, I'm going to start adding the outtakes, or some outtakes of me doing the recording, because some of them are pretty funny, I find, and also, you might get a kick out of them. But either way, here's a few of those, and hopefully you enjoyed. And please, do take care of yourself. Putress gained... fucking A. Putress was deeply invested in researching, though they were still far from the ending. Oh. Messed that up. The creature dodged and attacked again. Attacked. The creature dodged and attacked again. And the Lich King himself emerged to face them. Oh my god. Emerged. And the Lich King himself emerged to face them. Emerged to face them. And the Lich King himself emerged to face... Oh my god. It's not flowing. Emerged. And the Lich King himself emerged to face them. He mocked the gathered armies of He marked... Oh my god. And the Lich King himself emerged to face them. Oh. Oh my god. Emerged. And the Lich King himself emerged to face them. Wow, I really have a hard time with that. He collapsed to the ground beside countless... I don't know what the hell I was going for there. Believing the attack to be the work of Arthas. That's not right at all. I don't think Arthas would use the plague on himself. He willingly joined the coup against the Dark Lady in pursuit of his own... With some... And the Lich King himself emerged to face them. Damn it. Okay. And the Lich King himself emerged to face them. I have to very... Alright. Serious face.